Dawn breaks over Tikal in 1190 BC. The rainforest breathes mist into the air, the canopy hums with hidden life, and the ancient pyramids rise like jagged memories from the forest floor. Today, tourists walk these paths with cameras, bottled water, and excitement in their eyes. They see ruins of greatness, the remains of a civilization that seemed almost supernatural in its knowledge. They climb the steep steps of Temple I, gaze across the Great Plaza, and marvel at the engineering brilliance of a people who mapped the stars with the precision of modern astronomers. But none of them know what lies beneath their feet. None of them know about the sealed chamber archaeologists opened for only 3 days before the Guatemalan government shut it down forever. Because inside that chamber, scratched into limestone with trembling hands thousands of years ago, was a truth so disturbing that the official excavation notes were buried, the photographs locked away, and the site sealed with concrete. Started in 1962, when archaeologist Shook and his team were excavating beneath Temple III. They were searching for the tomb of a king, perhaps a queen, maybe a cache of jade masks or obsidian blades. They expected treasures, hieroglyphs, burial offerings. What they found instead was a perfectly smooth limestone wall, too smooth. It had no seams, no break lines, no mortar, nothing to indicate it was ever meant to be opened. But behind it, the instruments detected a hollow space. So they cut into it carefully, expecting gold or bones. What they found instead made 3 workers quit immediately. A room no bigger than a living room, perfectly preserved, untouched since the day it was sealed. The walls were smooth, the air suffocating. The floor covered not with treasure but with footprints, tiny footprints. Dozens, maybe hundreds, small bare feet pressed into the dust and hardened into the floor. All of them faced the wall. As if a line of small children had walked in, stood in position, and never walked again. And then deeper horrors revealed themselves. Under the lamplight, carved into the walls, barely visible scratches emerged. Not elegant Maya hieroglyphs, the kind carved on monuments and temples, but crude markings, uneven lines made by hands that didn't know how to write formally. These weren't the writings of scribes. They were the writings of common children, short phrases repeated over and over in the Proto-Maya script used by untrained civilians. And one message appeared 17 times: does not hear us. The goddess of life, fertility, childbirth, the protector of children. Why would children write that she could not hear them? Why would messages of desperation fill a chamber without an exit? Why were there tiny handprints pressed into the plaster of a corridor that led nowhere? Shook wrote in his report, this chamber was not ceremonial. It was used for containment, not worship, not burial, containment. But containment of what? Understand that we must go back 200 years earlier. Tikal was once the beating heart of the Maya world, a city of temples that reached toward the heavens, astronomers who charted Venus cycles with mathematical accuracy, and priests who wielded enormous power. But beneath the grand temples lay a brutal system of tribute, debt, and control. Maya temples were not simply places of worship, they were political machines. They controlled land, labor, crops, and people. When farmers could not pay their grain taxes, the priests gave them 3 options: surrender their land, surrender their labor, or surrender their children, children taken as offerings to the gods. Carved on several stelae discovered in the lowlands is a phrase translated as El Tun Pi, offering of the young. Scholars have always translated it politely child dedication, but the archaeological evidence suggests something far darker. In 2009, researchers found the bones of dozens of children aged 5 to 12 arranged in long rows beneath a collapsed temple. The bones showed no signs of cuts, no trauma, no violent death. They appeared to have died quietly or slowly. Now combine that with the Codex Fragment 7, confiscated by the Guatemalan government in 1974 and kept hidden for 41 years. When translated by David Stewart, it described a ritual called the sorting of the sacred children. During times of great drought, when the rains refused to fall, the Maya believed the barrier between the mortal world and the divine world grew thin. Children born under certain celestial signs, eclipse seasons, Venus alignments, were considered spiritually sensitive, threshold walkers. They were taken underground into chambers like the one under Temple III to call upon. The Codex says clearly, if the goddess does not answer, they must remain until she does. Remained. Wait. In the dark. Forever. This was not a violent sacrifice. This was abandonment masked as religion. The children were sealed alive because the priests believed their suffering would attract the goddess's attention, and if it did, the children stayed. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and the walls remember everything. But the story gets even darker. A second sealed chamber was discovered in 1998 beneath Temple V. It has never been opened publicly. Anonymous leaked photographs show bowls with tiny bite marks, scratches on the stone walls, and a single painted glyph that translates to "We waited until our shadows were gone." This is not a metaphor. In the pitch-black underground chambers, the children would have seen no light. They would have aged, starved, gone blind in the dark. Now combine all of this with modern science. In 2001, researchers studying bone samples from Tikal burials found traces of Salmonella C, a deadly pathogen. Others found evidence of encephalitic fever, brain infections that cause hallucinations, delirium, and behavior changes. That means at least some of these children were not chosen as sacred offerings. They were quarantined. The Maya didn't understand germs, but they understood contagion. And sometimes, when children in the city became sick, the priests sent them into the earth. Not to save them, but to save everyone else. The priests sanitized the act with religion. They framed it as blessing, as service to, as ascending to the goddess. But inside those chambers, children carved messages in terror. The handprints are proof. They pressed their palms into the wet plaster when they first entered, children obeying orders, believing they were part of a ritual. But some of the handprints are larger, older, pressed deeper. These were the children who survived weeks or months and returned to the wall, pressing harder, carving harder, leaving messages for anyone who might one day find them. The saddest part: the priests kept records of it all. Cold, calculated records. In Structure 5D46, archaeologists found administrative tablets listing children delivered for divine service, ages noted, villages listed, dates recorded, but the tablets stopped suddenly during a 7-year drought. Why? Because the children taken during those years never returned to the temple. They were sealed beneath it. Now listen carefully. In 2015, during a closed academic symposium, a Guatemalan historian admitted off-record that several additional child chambers exist but remain politically sensitive. Translation: they found more, but the truth would damage tourism, national identity, religious groups, and the narrative of the Maya as enlightened astronomer-philosophers. But history isn't meant to be comforting. It's meant to be honest. And the children deserve that honesty. Because when you walk through Tikal today, you walk on ground that remembers them. The temples were built on their labor, their suffering, their bones. Civilization always hides its darkest truths under its greatest monuments. Egypt did it, Rome did it, the Ottomans did it, and the Maya did it too. The chamber beneath Temple III is still sealed. Concrete blocks it. Even archaeologists cannot re-enter. But the photographs in the notes tell the truth. Dozens of small footprints facing the wall, dozens of tiny handprints pressed into plaster, and a message scratched again and again. Does not hear us. Maya collapse remains one of history's great mysteries, but perhaps part of the answer lies here, not in war, not in famine, but in a spiritual system stretched to its extremes, demanding the ultimate price from the most vulnerable. When a civilization begins sacrificing its future to preserve its present, it is already dying. And those children. They refused to disappear quietly. They carved their truth into stone with fingers meant for play, not prayer. They scratched their words into the dark, knowing no one might ever read them. But someone did. You did, right now. And the moment you heard their story, they stopped being forgotten. History is written by the victors. Memory is written by the lost. And today, you carried their memory with you.